Welcome back into Sportsmemo's betting podcast. We got college football, every game on the board. Segment number 4, the closer, Teddy covers. Teddy, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, great to be here, Drew. I'm pretty good, man. It's been a good start to the season, and you like that. Obviously, the bankroll likes it, the clients like it, but it when I have the good starts, it pays. It just makes me that much hungrier next summer, because I know that the work that you do over the summer pays dividends in September. And when you're sitting there and it's 110 degrees outside and you feel like lounging off, and you're like, no, I got to get through this conference. No, I got to do the one more team. And you bust your ass over the summer, it pays off. So I'm real glad we've gotten off to a great start this football season, both college and NFL. The big tickets are hitting. I mean, it's been a real good couple of weeks. So look to keep it rolling, man. No one thing that's I've seen it happen enough times already. Where you get up to a good start, you're like, oh, I know everything about everything. And no, you don't. It's a humbling business. So I've been working hard all week, and hopefully we'll have another winning card this weweekend.
Yeah, and I know you'll stay disciplined on the money management, the volumes in terms of plays, and talking about your records coming into this. It's where do you want to start? I mean, 184 and 129. That's 59% in the NFL, and that's over 4+ years, guys. I mean, that's my favorite one, just because it's longer term, man. 59% in the NFL. Not many people doing that over the long term. We got NFL and college this season, 21 and 11. That's 66%. 5% plays hitting 80%. Man, it's just looking good on a 6-0 NFL streak right now. We got 81 and 58% NFL and college football combined since the start of last year. It's endless, and that's a good thing, Teddy. So hopefully we can keep it rolling and find some winners for the listeners on the podcast. This is the last segment, guys. We have the first 3 segments of the Every Game on the Board podcast. Week number 4 edition just ahead of this on the podcast tab at sportsmemo.com. We got West Virginia at Kansas up first. Teddy, in the Big 12, Kansas off of their biggest win in quite some time. Now they're only catching 4.5, as high as 5.5 here. West Virginia laying on the road. 49 the total in Lawrence, Teddy.
So the last 5 years, it's been West Virginia 33-14, West Virginia 49-0. West Virginia 48-21, West Virginia 56-34, and West Virginia 38-22. They did not sniff a point spread cover last year as 27.5 point favorites. The markets have adjusted more than 3 touchdowns off of last year. This has not been a competitive series, and Kansas coming off their first blowout win in. Oh, they had a blowout win last year. They beat Rutgers and then came out the next week and lost to Baylor as 7-point dogs, 26-7. So they have had the occasional blowout win in recent seasons, but they have been few and far between. So the question, it really is, this is a one-question handicap. Is what we saw from Kansas last week real? Is that what we expect from the Jayhawks moving forward? Because I'll tell you what, Carter Stanley looked good, and Khalil Herbert looked good, and Puka Williams looked good, and Andrew Parchment made plays downfield, and Dalen Charlotte made plays downfield. This is not a team that has no playmakers anymore. They've got a handful. Was that real? As for West Virginia, we saw them talk about the opposite. They had a complete ugly no-show at Missouri. I was like, I can't take them as home dogs against NC State last week. I don't trust them enough. And then you saw them last week, and they looked just fine. It looked like West Virginia. And, Neil Brown. And again, when you're talking about a new coach coming into an established system, he's got to put his tweaks on it. I would expect for West Virginia, I think last week's West Virginia was realer, perhaps, in the Missouri game. I can only take the Mountaineers in this one. I would not want Kansas to make up that big of a gap in that short of a time based on the recent series history.
All right, Teddy, we got next game up. One of my favorites on the boards, 375-376, Oklahoma State, the Cowboys traveling to Austin to take on the Texas Longhorns. We got a high total here of 73, and it looks like 5.5 or 6. That's Texas laying at home.
Yeah, and we all know Mac Brown. No, Mac Brown's not at Texas anymore. He's at North Carolina. We all know Tom Herman's track record as an underdog long term. His track record as a favorite has not been nearly as good. And the Longhorns in the Tom Herman era as chalk have not been consistent money winners. We saw this defense struggle mightily when they stepped up in class against LSU. where LSU basically did whatever they wanted all day. Although, frankly, I don't know how many defenses are going to stop LSU that day. They came to play. But there's certainly a fair bit of market disrespect for the Texas defense and for the Longhorns in general. This wasn't a team that had a ton of returning talent back. They were a team that was fairly hyped in the media, but here in Vegas, they were not hyped in the same way. And all the talk was bet against the Longhorns. Texas isn't as good as advertised. Bet again. I mean, there was a lot of anti-Texas buzz, and that continues now with this range. Again, Texas at Okie State last year, they were chalk in that game. They were -3. So now they're -5 at home. They're saying that Texas is a notch or two worse, and Oklahoma State's a notch or two better. I don't think the Longhorns are a whole lot worse. And when I've watched Oklahoma State's defense so far, I have not been impressed at all. This is a game where Sam Ehlinger and the Texas offense should have a lot of success. So the question is, can Okie State trade score to them? Because I do believe Texas is going to get theirs. And that's the handicap here. In some ways, Texas correlates with under. Because it comes down to, are they going to get stops against the Cowboys offense that at times has looked very good and at times has been hit or miss. So that's the fundamental handicap. I tend to think Texas may well be able to do that. But I don't know if it's strong enough to be a betting opinion. Right now, it's just an opinion on the Longhorns. And I don't know that I'm actually going to get to the window with it.
And Teddy, just to bring up something on Oklahoma State offensively, the freshman quarterback here, he's a redshirt freshman, talking Spencer Sanders, Mr. Football in the state of Texas in high school, over 52 starts. It is his first year, early on in his career, being on the road, tough place to play. It is a question, but I mean, have you seen him play? I like him. I think, in terms of profile, quarterbacks looking to bet on, mobile, accurate down the field, I think this kid's a bet on. Have you seen him play?
Yeah, I watched him play twice. I saw the Tulsa game last week, and he was okay in that game. We had the 190-yard completion. The rest of the game, he didn't have like 70 passing yards or something. I mean, he finished with a $169 and 90 was on the one, so we didn't have 80 passing yards for the rest of the game. The game against Oregon State, again, as long as the running game is working, he's fine. They haven't asked him to try to win anything by himself yet. I'm not, I'm not ready to. In this game, they might need to do that. You know what I mean? I would expect Texas to stuff the box and say, let's let this Frost QB beat us. Of course, he has made a couple of starts on the road already. So he's shown his mettle in hostile environment. And Okie State has won and covered both of those road outings, although, there's a difference between Tulsa and Oregon State and Texas.
Good stuff, Teddy. We got Maction up next. Bowling Green at Kent State. Seeing Kent State laying 12 at home, 62.5 the total, Teddy.
And this is a disappointing spread for me. It's not like I do a lot in the MAC, but I had this game circled as one where if I got the number that I was hoping to get, I would be looking at the Kent State side of the equation. And I did not get the number I was looking for. I was like, well, my power rating's 9.5. And if I can get a 7 on this game, no. Market's open 9.5, 10, and they've been betting it up. Nobody wants Bowling Green right now. Bowling Green is an absolute bottom feeder in college football this year. And it's pretty clear through their first couple of games. So, when you get in a situation like, all right, now Kent's laying doubles, and Kent is not, to say that they're not an easy team to lay doubles with is something of an understatement. Let me just track this fact. I got a really good stat here on Kent, that, I'm just scrolling up to, they're 2-17 straight up. Their last 19 in the MAC, and they're laying double digits here. That's so. Like I said, the number here was wrong. Or was what I shouldn't say was wrong. The number here was not what I was hoping for. I was hoping for a cheap price to lay with Kent in the less than a touchdown or touchdown range, because I'm looking at. I don't think BG is going to be competitive in a lot of games, but I ain't laying doubles with a team that's 2-17 their last 19 in conference play. Not going to do it.
So 2-17 in their last 19. That's the stat. And now they're laying double digits.
Yes, which speaks volumes about Bowling Green.
Oh yeah, how Scott Loeffler got that job is pretty. Not that it's a great job, in college football head coaching standards, but when you look at his resume, he's kind of failed everywhere he's gone, Teddy.
that doesn't. And let's be honest. Coaches get into situations all the time that are bad situations. Doesn't make him a bad coach. Nick Saban coached the Dolphins. You know what I mean? And didn't do well here. Mike Loxley was at New Mexico State. Bill Belichick failed with the Browns. I mean, it's I don't necessarily downgrade a coach just because he walked into a bad situation and wasn't able to make it better.
Well said, Teddy. And he's Teddy Covers. Follow him on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. Guys, for the podcast, we got a special discount here, a big one, TC50 at checkout. That's TC50 for any long-term package. Can be 3-day, 7-day, 30-day, 90-day, 1 year all access, up to $1,000 off at sportsmemo.com. Coupon code TC50 at checkout for 50% off any long-term package at sportsmemo.com. We got SMU at TCU in the state of Texas here. 55.5 the total, Teddy. Just under doubles. That's TCU laying at home.
I can't believe you're giving away my stuff for half off, dude. I'm hot right now. Oh, okay. Well, hopefully we'll get some buyers because, I mean, it's we're seeing things pretty clearly, including this game. I can only take SMU plus in this contest. If I watched TCU and Purdue last week, and yes, TCU won and covered easily. The offense didn't do a lot to impress me. And I don't look at TCU as a team that's going to march up and down the field. I really don't. Defensively, they're solid. And they obviously were able to take advantage of a Boilermakers team that was in a dicey, I don't know. And this is a bad situation with their quarterback out. And the backup really wasn't as good. It's not a sandwich spot. They only have Kansas next for TCU, but that is their conference opener. And SMU is feisty, man. I like this team. I've liked them all year. And when you watch them play, you see exactly what I'm talking about. It's a Mustang squad that, obviously in the trenches, they may have some problems here. And that's my biggest concern. And that I may not get to the window with SMU because of that. The questions about what's going to happen at the line of scrimmage. But, Shane Buechele's been great this season. It really has. 66% completions, averaging almost 9 yards per pass attempt. And it's an offense with balance, with pace. I think they can move the football against TCU. I really do. And, and the total's saying that too. The total's saying, this isn't going to be one game. It's, 7-3. This, the total's mid-50s for this contest. So if I'm right about SMU and they can move the football here, they're live to win the game. The game's going to go over the total. SMU does correlate with over in this one. I don't think that they shut TCU down.
Teddy, next game up, something only a sports bettor can love outside of Fayetteville and San Jose. We're talking San Jose State at Arkansas. Arkansas laying 3 touchdowns, minus 20.5 or minus 21, 61 the total.
I couldn't disagree more. Is this game on? Is this game on TV? If it's on, I'm probably going to be watching it because I want to see. It's on the NFL Network, so actually that's a busy time. Yeah, but I'm very interested in this game, and I'm interested to see how Arkansas approaches it. Remember, last week, Arkansas in a massive revenge spot, okay? They led 27-9 at Colorado State last year and let it get away. And they're in a massive revenge spot at home against a Rams team that isn't very good. And that game's tied, 30, was it 34 all or 35 all? Yeah, it was tied at 35. And then Colin Hill got hurt for Colorado State, and the Arkansas tight end broke 56 tackles and got in the end zone. And then they scored 3 late touchdowns and boom, win and cover for Chad Morris's squad. But this isn't a team I'm excited about laying points with. And they got A&M up next. They're off a big revenge win. Arkansas should dominate the trenches all over. Obviously they're going to dominate the trenches. I don't know that San Jose can move the football in this game. They got a senior quarterback in Love. This kid can play too. He's the lesser of the two Loves in the Mountain West. Utah State's Love is the stud. But San Jose has been a good road dog in the sense of they're always catching 40 and losing by 21. Here they're only catching 21. So it's really a fascinating game, but not one that I'm even close to pulling the trigger on.
Teddy, good stuff so far. We got the Mini Iron Bowl up next. South Alabama at UAB, 10.5. The Blazers are laying at home, 48.5 the total. We got USA versus UAB. You interested in this one as well?
So I keep waiting, I keep waiting for the spot to bet against UAB. All right. That spot will come. All right. But it's not. It wasn't last week, and it's not this week. This team compared to last year. Remember when the UAB program got restarted?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? It was it got canceled and then re brought up, and there was the one class, that first class that came in, that were difference makers. And they were difference makers, and we saw that last year. That was their senior year, and they went 11-3 on the season and were a point spread monster and beat everybody. And then they lost everything in the offseason. I mean, everything: offensive line, defensive line, secondary, quarterback. The coach stuck around, and then they opened up the season, and you got Akron. I'm like, I don't want Akron, and I'm glad I didn't want Akron. I watched UAB. I watched that game. I was the one. I always watch these like little Max. I put it on one of the TVs up here. So that's the only time when you get a chance to see these squads play, it's important to me to watch them. I know I'm going to see Alabama 15 times this year, and Ohio State and all of that. So I tend to make sure that I have at least one of the less marquee matchups on one of the TVs so I can focus on it. And UAB looked okay against Akron, but Akron looked pretty bad. So here's South Alabama. I think they're every bit as bad as Akron. So I'm hoping UAB kills them. I really am. I think we're going to be in a prime opportunity to make money betting against this team somewhere down the road. But South Alabama is a team I want my money on, plain and simple. And as we saw last week, UAB is still capable of beating bad teams.
Teddy, we'll go from the state of Alabama out to California as the Oregon Ducks visit the Stanford Cardinal. Looks like Oregon laying 10.5 on the road, 57.5 the total. I think Stanford's going down for a third straight time. Teddy, how do you view it?
Well, they might. I mean, obviously, if you watch the Cardinal in either of the last 2 weeks, their defense has been riddled. I mean, they've had no chance. They had no chance against USC. Let the Frosh QB come in and light them up. They had no chance last week against UCF. UCF marched up and down the field beginning to end in that ball game. Stanford's got cluster injuries at linebacker. That's bad news against Oregon. You think? So I, too, have my concerns about the Cardinal this week, 100%. Clients and I cashed a big ticket with the Ducks 2 weeks back, where they win 77-6 over Nevada. Mm-hmm. And let me put it this way. I could only look at the Oregon side in this ballgame, and I'm not convinced I'm going to get to the betting window with Oregon. And here's why. All right. So when David Shaw first got the Stanford job after Jim Harbaugh left, Oregon owned them. Stanford was beating everyone. They couldn't get past Oregon. And he changed up his entire defense from recruiting to coordinator to strategy and philosophy just to change their methodology against the teams with speed like Oregon, because that's where they were struggling against. And lo and behold, you look at the recent results in this series, and not just a little Stanford, it's been all Stanford. Every bit as like the West Virginia and Kansas story we were talking about a few minutes ago. But last year was competitive. 38-31 was the first time that Oregon's offenses worked against Stanford in a recent year. Before that was 49-7. The year before that, 52-24. The year before that, there've been a number of years where so it's now triple revenge for the Ducks. Part of me feels like Oregon's just going to smack this team, and Stanford is just, if you keep betting against the Cardinal, it makes a ton of sense. And the other part of me says, from a value standpoint, this is all priced wrong because Oregon blew out Nevada. Okay, now they got to go on the road and beat a team that's been beating them, and win by margin. And for as good as the Ducks have looked, I'm telling you, they're not what they were when you have the multiple coaching changes in a relatively short amount of time, like this team has, and systems starting and stopping and starting and stopping, and it's bad for the program. And the players transfer out, and then it takes a little bit of time for the new ones to get up to speed. So, I haven't been thrilled with Cristobal yet. So I lean Oregon. I don't know that I get to the betting window in this game. I really don't. We'll see. I'm still thinking about it.
Teddy, do you put anything into this game being at Stanford? And what reports of growing out the grass and it slowing down Oregon as well?
I'm sure they'll have the grass as long as they possibly can. This is Oregon off of their preferred venue for sure. That being said, the enthusiasm around the program at the farm hasn't been this low since before Jim Harbaugh got there. I mean, they're struggling to sell tickets right now, and that hasn't been the case in Palo Alto in recent seasons. And I don't look at Stanford's home field edge as nearly what it was even 2 or 3 years ago.
Tell you, let's head to the state of Texas. We got Baylor at Rice, 58.5 the total. The Baylor Bears laying 26 on the road.
58.5. That's an interesting total, considering that Rice isn't going to stop anybody. Rice's defense is that, they are what they are. Undersized, under-talented. The effort's been there, and they're not super banged up yet. But I don't see Rice stopping Baylor. Baylor's big and physical in the trenches, and Rice is going to have a hard time getting stops in this game. That being said, Rice's quarterback, kid out of Harvard, Stewart, hadn't thrown a pick the last 2 weeks. He's faced real defenses in both games, 3 touchdowns. He's looked solid in doing so. So I would not be surprised at all to see this game being relatively high-scoring contest. I lean over in Baylor and Rice.
Guys, remember the coupon code TC50, TC50, 50% off any long-term package at sportsmemo.com for Teddy Covers. Huge savings there, up to $1,000 off on his 1-year all-access pass at sportsmemo.com. Will be available for 48 hours. TC50 at sportsmemo.com. We got Texas San Antonio at North Texas up next, Teddy. 18.5 the Mean Green Lane at home. 58 the total in Denton.
Yeah, Utsa's pretty bad this year. Texas San Antonio is a good notch or two down. It's not like they were great last year. They were 3-9 a year ago. But I remember last year they gave Baylor a game. They were in a handful of contests. Not this year. And they got worse as the season progressed, and it's not an offense that I trust to score points against anybody. I really don't. Texas San Antonio right now is essentially a one-way team for me. And I'll tell you what. The issue is, can we lay this price with North Texas? And North Texas has been a bad point spread team laying points. Mason Fine has not been living up to expectations, shall we say. Certainly not point spread expectations. This team's been an underachiever point spread wise, and they're not a squad I'm real excited about laying a price with. So a pretty easy pass for me on this one.
Teddy, big game up next. We're talking Notre Dame at Georgia, between the hedges here in Athens, Georgia. It's a night game on CBS. Georgia's taking some money, man. Pushed up from 11.5. Now we're seeing 14.5. At some point, you'd think there'd be resistance, but it did steam through the 13s, through the 14s. 58 the total, Teddy.
Well, all the trends say when you have this game comes down to one question: is Georgia right there with Alabama and Clemson? And the markets seem to think so. They thought so prior to the season. Obviously, we saw Notre Dame when they tried to play Clemson last year, when they really stepped up against the truly elite teams. We saw them fail. Ian Book failed. The offense failed. It was a non-competitive game for the Irish. So if Georgia's that, I can't expect Notre Dame to do anything different than what we've already seen them do when they step up in class like this, and that's get their butts kicked. And certainly the trends say, when you're looking at the two teams that are ranked in the top 9, and one of them's catching 2 touchdowns or more, it's been pretty ugly for the team catching 2 touchdowns or more. You do see class differences even between top 10 teams when one of those 2 teams is truly an elite college football team. Is Georgia that? They sure look that way. That being said, Georgia hasn't played anybody yet, and they've gotten an enormous amount of hype. And we've at least seen Notre Dame go on the road. Louisville came to play. Louisville, and I know they're not, Louisville's not Georgia, but they went on the road. They moved the football. They executed the offense. They played a good game once against a quality foe, which is not, we saw Georgia beat Vandy, I guess. I'll rate Louisville over Vandy right now. But so they at least have faced and handled a road test. And, of course, these 2 teams played in South Bend 2 years ago. Notre Dame was laying 5. The final score was 20-19. It wasn't a game where laying points was the right thing to do.
Good stuff, Teddy. We got Louisville, aforementioned Louisville at the Florida State Seminoles in Tallahassee, laying 7 or 6.5, 61 the total.
Yeah, you, me, everybody else. The only side any of us wants is Louisville, and the markets know that. And And we talk about trends and angles, all this stuff. No, the market is just power rating for team A and power rating for team B, and let's factor in the home field, and that's how you get a point spread. That's why you see stuff like Michigan State laying 9.5 at Northwestern. They don't care about the trends and angles. It's all about team A's power rating, team B's power rating, home field, factor in any situational or adjustment edges or injury edges or injury adjustments, and boom, there's your line for the game. And that's the way this one grades out. I mean, no, there's no groundswell of support for Florida State anywhere, and yet the line's hanging around where it is, which means someone says that the numbers are good. That Florida State is capable of doing this, and they've taken so much heat, so much criticism, and I thought they played well in Virginia last week, and they did beat Monroe. They wasn't pretty, but and now no one trusts Florida State's defense. The defense got gashed last week. I don't think they're hopeless. And Louisville, who was, a 1-11 team last year and quit on their coach and quit on their season, is getting a lot of love in the markets. I mean, you, me, everybody, all we can do is take Louisville in this game, and the price isn't right to do it. So it's a game that I was like, yeah, I like Louisville. No, I don't like them in this point spread range. It's a pass. I'm not going to get involved between the Seminoles and the Cardinals.
All right, Teddy, we got 3 games left, and then we got some questions from the listeners reaching out via Twitter. So always appreciate that, and we'll get to it after the late night slate here. Starting off with Nevada at UTEP. Looks like 51.5 being the total. The Wolfpack laying 14.5 or 15 on the road, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the team that you don't want your money on. And, UTEP is there. You're not going to make money betting the true bottom feeders in college football, and especially at home where the spread's going to be lower. When I'm taking the ugly dogs, I don't take the ugly dogs very often. But if I am, I don't know. It depends on the team. But this isn't there's no home field for UTEP ever. They don't draw. Nobody shows up. 0-12 in 2017, 1-11 last year. They're just a bottom feeder. So the question is, do you want to lay this with Nevada? Do you trust a Wolfpack in this range? And Nevada expects to win this game. There's a level of confidence there. But the last time they were on the road, that 77-6 game against Oregon, it was mistake ridden. That certainly concerns me here. But I want no part of the Miners.
All right, Teddy. We got the coupon code TC50, 50% off any Teddy Covers longer-term packages at sportsmemo.com, up to $1,000 off on the website. He's hot right now. He's killing it, 59% NFL, all over the place, killing college football as well through the first 3 weeks. Showing no signs of stopping. Check it out on sportsmemo.com. Coupon code TC50 at checkout. Any longer-term package, 50% off. TC50 at checkout. We got 2 late-night specials here. We got UCLA at Washington State. We got Utah State at San Diego State. And, of course, we don't recommend chasing or going too big on the late-night action. All of that being said, Teddy, money management being in account, do you have an opinion here on the UCLA Bruins, Washington State Cougars, 18.5? The Cougars laying in Pullman, 58 the total.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to my personal wagers in college football, once games kick off at 9 a.m. on Saturday, I do very little. I'll do some in-game, but I basically made all the bets I'm likely to make, and sometimes I'm waiting for a line or waiting for a number, and hopefully as the day progresses, we'll get it. But if you've had a bad day in college football on Saturday, you're like, oh, let's load up on the late games. I mean, that's your recipe for disaster, and people know that by now. It really is. That being said, let's talk about it. I mean, I have opinions on both games. Very misleading final score, UCLA-Oklahoma last week. Oklahoma literally could have won that game 100-0. They could have scored a touchdown on every possession, and they were up 14-0. They took their foot off the gas. The Bruins are pretty bad. And it's not a situation where there's anything on the horizon that says UCLA is going to get better. Chip Kelly hasn't recruited well. He says, we don't have the guys to run the spread offense here. UCLA is a train wreck, okay? This is not a team, there's value. It's Wazoo or pass for me in that one. And again, Wazoo it's a plug-and-play system right now. Okay, they didn't get the money last week in their first road game. I think that Washington State can name the score here. And until I see some signs that UCLA can be competitive with someone, they're a bet against or leave it alone. And even now, there's a little bit of wise guy money for, it got bet up, and I was getting bet down a little bit. There's 8 teams out there now. That's cheap. Washington State or pass.
I like it, Teddy. And last one here, 2 10:30 Eastern kicks here, 7:30 Pacific. The other one being in the Mountain West, a good one in the Mountain West. Utah State at San Diego State. Looks like the Aggies laying 4 in San Diego, 54.5 the total, Teddy.
There's a lot of respect for Utah State in this point spread range, or maybe not any respect for San Diego State. And look, I mean, the Aztecs weren't great last year. You know, they went 11-3, 11-3, 11-3, and then 11-3, 11-3, 10-3 over the previous 2 seasons because they had played in the Mountain West title game a couple times. And then last year was just 7-6. You know, and they lost their last 4 to close out the season. They got blasted by Ohio in the Frisco Bowl. It was a disappointing year for San Diego State. And the markets are still looking at San Diego State like, yeah, whatever. You know, the win over UCLA was devalued because everyone's beating UCLA right now. And other than that, all they've done is play garbage, in New Mexico State and Weber State. And there's not any explosiveness in this San Diego State offense by any stretch of the imagination. And I mean, they're one of the least sexy teams in college football. And the last 2 times they played Utah State, they beat them 40-13 and 48-14. Okay, and admittedly, that was back in 2016 and 2017. They don't play every year, but it's not like Utah State was a bottom feeder in those seasons, and it's not like the Aztecs' defense isn't really, really good, and it's not like the Aggies' defense is really, really good. So I think there's value on the San Diego State side of the equation, and that's the only way I would look at this one, taking the points with the underdog, and there is some correlation there, not a huge correlation, but San Diego State's not winning shootouts. Lean Aztecs, lean under.
All right, he's Teddy Covers. We've got some questions for you, Teddy, to wrap it up. He's also 184 and 129. That's 59% in the NFL since 2015, over 4 years, and also college football and the NFL this year, 21 and 11 starts, 66%. And guys, 50% off any long-term package using the coupon code TC50 at checkout. Teddy, got some questions here. One from Rich on Twitter. Appreciate it, Rich. Quick rundown of Teddy's routine for breaking down games, college and pro. Cliff Notes version is okay. I know that probably a lengthy process. So do you just maybe hear 30 seconds on how you start your process of going down in both college and pro, but coming out with what games you're going to be betting for that week?
I can't do that in 30 seconds. I can't do that in 20 minutes.
All right. We'll go on to the next question then.
It's a good question. I mean, the first step of the process, I mean, I can go through some of the steps the first step is accurately assessing what just happened in the last game and making appropriate powering adjustments and making situational adjustments for the game, and then creating a set of point spreads before the lines come out, and then looking at the lines come out and how they come out, checking the injury reports and making sure that your offensive and defensive lines are what they think they're going to be, and making sure you're reading your beat writers and all your little stuff that gives you the little tidbits on what's going on with the teams. And then the lines come out. So that's what you want to do, Saturday night / Sunday morning to get yourself ready for, if you want to do this seriously, if you want to do this as a professional level, recognize that Saturday and Sunday are both 16, 18-hour days, and they're work days. You're not sitting there watching games chilling. You're sitting there watching games, note-taking, making bets, making assessments, adjusting power ratings on the fly, multiple games at the same time. It's not, let's chill out and have a couple beers and watch the games. You hang out with me watching games one Saturday, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's work. But, I mean, that's the start of the process, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty good for under a minute, Teddy. Appreciate that. We also got a question here from Jason on Twitter. So talking about like a -2.5 line, and I've heard you say this before too. If it gets to -3 or -3.5, quote unquote, they will be on the other side. Doesn't it cost juice to do that? So would it be a smart bet? I think is the question he's asking in terms of losing the juice just to get a small middle.
I don't do that personally. Most of the time when I have a good number, I just hold that number. I'm not looking to play for middles. The guys that are playing for middles, okay, have that literally that's what they do. It takes an enormous bankroll. Remember, you hit one middle out of 20, you break even. All right, laying minus 110, where you're cashing. That's you have to cash both sides. But when you're talking about if you win 2 out of 20, you're making a bunch of money, which is true with middles. You still have a very low success rate. 10% success rate makes you a fortune. So in order to do that, you need to be able to withstand an enormous amount of losing. With bets on both sides of games, we're only going to cash one of the two sides and lose that 10%, 10%, or it's 4.5% because 110 to win 100. You're betting a total of 220. You get back a total of 220 when you make $100 bets. You know what I'm talking about, 4.5%. But you're going to lose 4.5% on this one and the next 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 one, and then one time you're going to win a bunch. But it takes deep bankrolls to be playing for middles. And I don't think that many of our viewing, I don't know that many people have that kind of deep bankroll. I mean deep bankroll. When I have a number, if I bet a team at 2.5 and the line moves to 3.5, I go, great. I have a positive expectation wager in my pocket. It's not a 50-50. If I have a 2.5 and the market's at 3.5, it's more like and it's more like a 55 or 60% edge. That's positive expectation. You do that over time, you will make money betting in any sport.
Yeah, Teddy, I got something I'd like to hear your opinion on it. I rarely do it as well. I think it's something in the industry that's kind of overblown and people kind of run with it. 2.5, and I'm betting the other side at 4.5. I got this middle. I think people kind of I don't know, maybe kind of boast about that. The only time I really do that is, and it happens every so often, usually in the beginning of college basketball season, sometimes in the beginning of college football season, where a total will run 9, 10, 11 points. It actually happens here. So that's the only time I'll run with it. But Teddy, really, really great podcast, man. It went a little long, but good stuff overall. Thanks for the time, Teddy. And guys, thanks for tuning in. Best of luck with your bets. We'll be back tomorrow on the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. Best of luck with your bets.